Hello and welcome back to Inquisitor Martyr. Last time we ended up completing more of the Void Brethren missions, the tier 3 ones, and we ran out of keys. So instead of running more and not being able to open chests, we're just going to go through a Void Crusade. I have to do one for the seasonal stuff, and we can do an Ecru. I don't know what an Ecru is. Everything else makes sense. You know, Ivory, Ebony, Amber, Viridian, Azure, Zircon, Violet, Crimson, and then just Ecru. Huh. Okay, so our options are, I guess, okay. Yeah, let's just knock out the Eldar. We'll do it quick. Since it's low enough level, I can actually afford to put some challenges on it. We'll go with that. We'll go Solemn Code, because I do need to find more of those.
Oh, the sweet stench of imminent death. The craving for bloodshed before the battle. I wish I could be there with my battle runners. Take the enemy head on, lay waste to their strongholds, and show no mercy.
So one thing I've really grown to appreciate with this game is just like the crafting system, even though I don't use it much, but being able to re-roll stats and all that stuff and just make gear. Because I sat down, was looking at Destiny again. You know, if you've been following this enough, you know I have a love-hate relationship with that game. And one of the big things, because I haven't played since Forsaken, I kind of check in, see what people are talking about, but I haven't actually re-downloaded and fired up the game. Because I feel like I'm just so far behind, and I just have problems with some of the stuff they've done over the years. Mostly the making content is hard statement. I still think that's absurd. But, so, the whole thing is, like, with the crafting this, it's so nice because I can't just make, like, Archaeotech. I have to get a schematic for it. If I want to make a relic, I have to get a schematic, and I only get 5 runs. You know, I have to sit down, and then I can still, like, I have to sit down, get the thing, make them, and hope they're good, or re-roll them. And even then, I can get great stats and low actual numbers on them. So I can spend more time powering this thing up or doing whatever. But I've seen so many things with Destiny where they're like, oh yeah, so the crafting is broken. And all these people are getting god rolls, or the weapon mods that are like, oh hey, you can get like plus 10 accuracy or plus 10 stability to your weapon. And then I look to see, oh, where can you get it? And the game's just like, yeah, you can get it by going flawless in Trials of Osiris. I'm like, wait, so you have to go flawless in the mode that has the highest number of cheaters, exploiters, and just the sweatiest people ever. I mean, they had a issue not too long ago where people were putting a line of code in the chat, and it would crash other people's games. And of course it happened right when Trials started. And they've had so many issues. I remember early on in D2 they ended up having to take Trials offline, and it took them ages to ever bring it back because of how bad it went. So it's like seeing this happen again, I'm not even surprised I'm just disappointed that they put these rewards in there when realistically every weapon, when you get the rolls, it should have been like, oh hey, this mod that you got for the weapon, or like this trait is only the rare version. You know, instead of giving plus 10, it gives, you know, plus 7. You know, little incremental things that they invite players to farm or to spend resources re-rolling. Because that's the other great part is, in this, deconstructing gear actually has a purpose, because you need those parts to make more things or to modify things.
A fine sacrifice for the Emperor.
And give me this last capture zone.
Once again,
Yeah.
the enemies of the Imperium failed miserably.
Alright, so we got +1s on both of those, so we'll hold off and dip down. Actually, I'm gonna quick mulch. I already have that armor. Oh, and that's for based on damage taken. No, definitely not using that.
The very existence of this filth defiles the Imperium. They may be great in numbers, but if we sever the head, the body will die.
Nothing, okay.
Kill their leaders
But
and break their
one thing
will.
I had noticed, and this is something I had talked to my same friend about regarding Destiny, is all the changes they've been making over the past like year and a half. The reworks to the subclasses, all this stuff, the stasis subclass, the rumors that we're getting a like poison subclass. I said it feels like they're just kind of throwing whatever at the wall at this point and using the game as a test bed. Because he said, oh, well, don't they have like years of content? I said their last roadmap said they have, I think, this year and next year of content left. And the way this engine has aged, the way the game has aged, they need to move on and create a new game. You know, they're only going to lose people more and more as time elapses. And I had said, you know, looking at all these changes, they feel so haphazard that it just feels like they're things that were done as like, okay, well, we have essentially a live player base. Why don't we test this stuff out for the next game? This way, instead of having teething problems in the first few months to a year of D3, we can knock these out and have them work at launch and just have the teething problems at the end of our last game. You know, have D2 have kind of a wonky ending due to mechanics, but it's something we can all very easily recover from. And I mean, that makes sense. I do wish this didn't follow this whole, like, oh, we have to keep making iterative games kind of deal, because there's still exotics from Destiny 1 that never got released for Destiny 2. I earned my Dark Lighter, or Dark Drinker, Raise Lighter, and whatever the other one is. I earned those 3 swords. I had to do that stupid hard mode strike and kill specific knights in order to get those. You know, I'd like to be rewarded with those and have them back. And that's something too that I've grown to appreciate with this game is, while we don't have fancy, super unique exotics, we also don't have the terrible balancing. Granted, that balancing for Destiny was because they kept pushing for 1-to-1 parity in PvP, which just meant your PvE gear sucks because some shitter is able to absolutely wombo combo the hell out of someone and you can't stop them. Like, I hated that because it made PvE so boring. Yallarhorn got nerfed into the ground. And instead of going, oh, well, we should just make weapons that don't suck so there's viable competition, you know, why don't we make some better launchers and better heavy weapons to incentivize people switching off it? They're just like, nah, let's just make the weapon suck. If I know one way to get people to stop using a weapon, it's to nerf it into the ground so no one wants to use it. And then we will continually market that weapon as a selling point in DLCs and sell a Nerf gun version of it because we know you want the old one back. It's like, yeah, this is kind of a real shitty approach though. Just saying. But that said, comparing a game like that to this is kind of a disingenuous argument because they don't try to be a full-on ARPG like this. You know, they're not sitting here doing proper just horde shooting. They don't have... I mean, they barely touched on enemies having, like, a champion trait. And then they turned around and were like, oh, well, to kill these guys, you need to have a specific mod into your gun. I remember when I saw that, I was like, are you just stupid? You know, the enemies can be challenging. The way to kill them should just be shooting them. It shouldn't be, oh, hang on, I gotta use these certain abilities, otherwise I'm rendered incapable.
Success is measured in blood.
You know, that's a very poor design choice in my eyes. There's a challenge to actually complete a Void Crusade in 75 minutes. But if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna run the easiest one and just blitz through it. Because I think any other difficulty, there's too many for me to actually sprint through. Because it's complete an entire Void Crusade with bonus missions. And it's like, yeah, I could ignore a little offshoot like that and just sprint to enemies. But I also don't feel like I have the damage potential. But I really do love the combinations in this game. Like, oh, if you get a critical with this, and you have this trait on this weapon, then you can, you know, physical crit can cause bleed, or a bleeding hit can slow, when without that item or that specific roll, you could land, you know, a bleeding hit or a physical critical and not get that bonus. You know, it's a minor thing, but it's fun. And I can appreciate little things like that, because that's... I mean, I haven't played Diablo in years, but that's kind of what I remember from Diablo. Just, I don't think it was ever to this degree. Which I like. I love... I've said before, I love depth in games. You know, let me go crazy theory crafting and creating a build. You know, that's where I thrive. When things get too simplified, they just get boring. Oh, that's cool. Never had that before. God, I really love this staff. Like, the DPS is just gross. If only, like I said last episode, if I could get one where I could put all the psalm codes to triple shot. Because the big thing there is, even if it doesn't all lock onto the same target, potentially giving myself 3 targets that I can just flatten in an instant. Wow, that hurt. Haha, and you still died. Because my fire lingered long enough. Anything at the end here? Maybe a chest? No, okay. I'll take that psalm code. Everything else. I'm gonna have to probably go this one and see what these unlock. That's not that great. Let's get a 3rd one in quick. Yeah, because I feel like this is my best option, because this gives me 2 paths to take. It's a data hunt. Yeah, we can toss on some difficulty boosters. Yeah, extra demons, 1 extra champion enemy, and extra health for elites. That's all doable.
Intelligence assets report several vulnerable cogitator stations in the area. Exact locations unknown. Tech priests predict moderate hostile presence.
I will say I'm glad it's Eldar who have this chance to spawn a demon on death thing, simply because Eldar do not have as many units as like Imperial Guard or anybody who has, especially Imperial Guard, because god, they throw just waves of garbage, and I don't need to be sitting here killing garbage and then 15 more enemies spawn. Oh, I saw an interesting thing about, like, video game stories and talking about just how difficult they are to make and how people should start, like, developers should start considering using, like, AI to generate stories. Not in the way of, like, okay, beep boop, make me a story to write about, but making a world and then having almost like a random gen mission chain is the best way I'd describe it. And I've even seen people say, oh, I use a AI to DM my Dungeons and Dragons sessions. And it just feels so weird to me. Because on one hand, yeah, having random gen story arcs I think is a great design choice for games. I look at a game like this or a game like Destiny where you can easily, if you wanted to, if you have random gen tile sets, you could plug and play a bunch of different things. Let's take a game like this, for example. You say, oh, well, we have to rescue an Imperial, an Inquisitor. Okay. You rescue them from insert enemy here. Okay, let's say it's the Eldar. Okay, you rescue them from the Eldar. That creates a chain of possibilities. Eldar just being Eldar. Okay, that's an option. Eldar who are being controlled by a demon or something. That's an option. Eldar who are essentially being held kind of hostage or enslaved by Dark Eldar. You know, you can start creating options for the story, and they can kind of culminate. You have, you know, random traits, like how Diablo has random traits on some creatures, and you have those for bosses. I've mentioned it before, a great way to introduce like random gen Space Marine enemies is like, oh, they're war gear. You have stuff like that. You could easily create, they're not going to be the, you know, the literary masterpieces that one would hope for. But in terms of, hey, I need a reason to be fighting in this little bit, yeah, it can pump out a decent reason. Not gonna be bad, not gonna be fantastic. The enemy modifying trait would be a fantastic thing. You could use that for EVE Online. God, my fire damage is just insane. That guy didn't even, like, spawn in. But, you know, you can sit there, using EVE as an example, you say, oh, well, we're gonna change the Sancha incursions. They're a system that I think is a little old now and could definitely do with some updates. They're a PvE aspect where one faction will take over a territory and you have to do PvE missions to force them out. The problem being the teams of people who are dedicated to running incursions can burn these things down in like 8 hours. So they don't last long because they're supposed to last multiple days in the instances. But, you know, people, they know their thing. There's entire guides that are like, oh, in this mission these enemies will spawn. Ignore these ones, they're respawning and don't drop anything. Focus this, do this, this, this. But I think you could start introducing like a boss fight where, you know, a unique or a semi-unique version of a ship shows up and it's captained by a randomly generated name that has certain things about them. You know, you might be expecting, oh, they're going to be just using, you know, a dreadnought, but there's an off chance they might come in with a Titan, or they might have a super carrier, or they might have, you know, their under the hood trait is they spawn in with a larger than expected fleet. Each of these things make the encounter different. Now, would something like a Titan completely unbalance it? Good chance, yeah. I'll be honest, Titans are super weapons. One warping in on a fleet not built for that could easily get flattened. But I also think it only exists for that run of the incursion, and it creates a new encounter that players would then have to potentially retreat from, reassess, rebuild their fleet or retool it, and then go back in properly equipped. And I think that can be applied everywhere. A game like this, once again, yeah, you could easily have named characters. I mean, hell, you could recycle Fabius Bile as many times as you want and just have him potentially be a villain. Destiny could use it. They need random gen environments, though. They need it desperately. You can only run those same strikes and same content so many times before I just lose it. When I play that game, I'm on autopilot. Full stop. Because there's just nothing new. Even on, like, Nightfalls, I was still on autopilot for the most part. Or something that would be cool, but they'd have to redo their server architecture, is if any of you played the game Defiance, or they really released it as Defiance 2050 before shutting it down, because all they did was change the classes, rename it, and then charge money for everything again. But that game, it had really cool world events, arc falls. And so you'd sit there, and I always remember, because I played it very early on, and there was the Hellbug infestation. And you'd have this gigantic, monstrous hive queen bug monster just pop out of the ground, and you'd fight it. And the thing was, it kind of instanced, but there was a ton of people. So you'd all be fighting it, and I thought that was awesome. Giant world boss, you'd see people getting down, I'd run over, revive them, we'd be fighting off the queen and any ads it spawns, and then at the end, depending on how much you contributed, you got rewards. You know, literally a basic world boss. And I thought it was the coolest thing on earth. And I love world bosses. I think they're a great community thing. And that's something. You could have random gen world bosses in games. I think that would keep people interested. Depending on different traits, they could have different reward possibilities. I mean, there's a ton of potential. It's just whether or not someone's willing to put the time in to capitalize on it.
Objectives are met. All data sermons are now in Inquisitorial custody. Praise the Omniscire.
Alright, let's see what we get out of this. I'm gonna guess nothing special for these. Okay, that was expected. Okay, good. So that did unlock a mission that isn't going to scale up. So we can push to here. That's good. Hopefully this doesn't screw us, but it's looking good. Man, yeah, you definitely have to move faster if I want to get that 75-minute run. Because I've only done 3 in 20 minutes. And if I just basic 3, I'm not even halfway through and I'll hit 60 minutes. And I have to burn through all the others. But, well, actually, before we end it, let's go through the gear quick. Okay, yeah, nothing worthwhile. So, that is all for now. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to hit the like button. It helps out the channel a lot. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.